So we're going to get started. My name is Jamila Blake, and I'm a SOAR counselor with Economic Action Maryland. We have a wonderful panel this afternoon that's going to talk about organizing, and I hope you guys get as much information as possible from them. So our first panelist is Ricard Jones. She's a stellar track record of raising awareness for a number of social and economic issues through education, advocacy, and action. She's currently a political director at 1199 Service Employees International Union, where she's directed a large number of political and issue-based campaigns, including but not limited to labor, economic, justice, healthcare, and racial and gender equality. Let's please give Ricard a very warm welcome. Our next panelist is Cynthia Marshall, and she's been a community organizer since 2002 and works with AIM and its sister organizations in Maryland. Her first significant campaign won $29.7 million to build recreation centers in historical African American communities. She was the lead organizer at People Acting Together in Howard and was the founding organizer for Anne Arundel Connecting Together. She's worked with talented local leaders on campaigns to create READY, a youth conservation corps, and a campaign to win tens of millions in funding for low-income seniors to receive care at home instead of institutionalized nursing home settings, among other campaigns. Let's give her also one more. Patty Sneed took a job with an energetic group of grassroots organizers who were building statewide citizen action organizations in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and other states around the country. For the next 3 decades, Patty had the opportunity to build coalitions, create multi-issue and intersectional issue organizing campaigns, and to train hundreds of staff who helped grow the movement of women's, LGBTQ, economic, and environmental justice causes. Let's also give Patty.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you, Jamila, for that introduction. Again, my name is Ricard Jones. I'm with 1199 SEIU. As you heard, we are a healthcare union, and we represent healthcare workers in both the long-term care setting and hospital settings. And while most folks think about labor unions as mostly being concerned around wages and benefits, we believe that our responsibility doesn't end when our members clock out. Our members don't just go to work, they have to go home. And we want to make sure they go home to communities that are both safe, healthy, and thriving. Which is why we spend a lot of time around organizing around social, economic, climate, and racial justice issues, because those issues impact our members on a day-to-day basis beyond their job sites. So I have lots of stories about how we organize inside workplaces, but I just really wanted to talk today about a people-powered community campaign that we're working on in Baltimore. It's an effort that's all about collective power, and it's like what's possible when we organize from the ground up. We're working along some partners who are here today, like Economic Action Maryland, Progressive Maryland, SOS Fund, as well as a number of labor and faith organizations. And it's through a coalition that we have that's called With Us, For Us, or we call it WUFU. And it was inspired by a powerful slogan that you probably have heard before, called "Nothing about us without us is for us." Mm-hmm. And this originated in South America with the South African Disability Rights Movement in the 90s. And it's been since used by a number of communities all over the world that are fighting systemic oppression. And the campaign, it really focuses on a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. And in Baltimore, we have 14 wealthy tax-exempt institutions that are hospitals and universities, some of which you've heard of, like Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland, Loyola, and they are classified as nonprofits. so they do not have to pay property taxes, even though they use city services like trash collection, road maintenance, police and fire protection. So as a result, they entered into a voluntary pilot agreement with the city where they contribute $6 million a year collectively. Right. Right. $6 million. A drop in the bucket. But so the issue is that the Baltimore City Comptroller, he actually released a report showing that these institutions use $47 million in city services every year, which creates a $41 million gap. And who do you think has to fill the gap? Right? We do. And I mean, I say all this to say that we recognize that anchor institutions play a very vital role in our communities. They're the largest employer in Baltimore City. They support smaller nonprofits, but they can do more. In Baltimore, homeowners are paying the highest property taxes in the region. They spend about 3% of their income in property taxes, while Johns Hopkins pays less than 1%. In fact, Hopkins pays their CEO more in bonus payments than they contribute to the city to cover their expenses.
That ain't right.
Right. Last year, during the last budget cycle, the city had an $85 million deficit and ended up, raising a lot of fines and fees that that's going to fall on the backs of working people to balance the budget. And there are a lot of funds, city services that are going to remain unfunded. So we really think that this is a time for anchor institutions to step up and pay their fair share. So with this information, we started to do a lot of research, and we looked at other cities who had similar pilot agreements with these anchor institutions. And we found that Boston was able to get $35 million through their pilot. New Haven and Providence got $22 million. So we figured, why can't we do this in Baltimore? So we took this research and we published our own white paper, and we drafted legislation that will create a task force to look at this issue. And the task force will be made up of community members, workers who work at these institutions, the institutions themselves, of course, and elected officials. And then their job would be to recommend a fair, transparent formula on how much these institutions should contribute. And that will be based on their budgets and how much they actually use for city services. And the reason why we wanted to make sure it was fair and transparent is because when this agreement was signed 10 years ago, it was done in a backroom deal. It was just the mayor and these institutions, and they just came up with an amount. So we just want to make sure there was actually a formula that was going to come out of this process. But as you all can imagine, we know we're still in the fight, but it's a tough fight because we're going up against these, powerful institutions who have very deep pockets and very wealthy lobbyists, as well as, I think that was one issue, but then most people don't even know what a pilot is. So we know that we had to rely on public pressure in order to move our elected officials to do the right thing. But we also had to really focus on education and organizing and building a coalition. So we took a lot of the research that we were able to find and tried to put it into tiny bite-sized pieces that people would understand. And we started this campaign by going to a lot of neighborhood association meetings, having a lot of one-on-one conversations. We would show up at farmers markets, festivals, community events, really to test the message and identify what people really care about. I think the first lesson that we learned very quickly was that we had to cut the jargon. Like, nobody wants to talk about tax exemptions and community benefits. But when we changed the message, they did really want to talk about rec centers or a playground for their neighborhood, or properly funding 988, which is a hotline for residents in crisis. And those conversations helped us to build our coalition, which we have now. We have over 20 plus organizations that are working on this issue and hundreds of community members that are really engaged. And when we launched this campaign a few years ago, we did it at a local urban farm. And we wanted to do it there because this farm is already providing a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables to the surrounding neighborhood. But the point was to say, like, if this farm had more support and more resources, how many more families would they, actually be able to feed? And just to talk through like a number of some of the tools that we use to organize with the campaign is we first brought in advocates from both Boston and New Haven to share their experiences so we can have lessons learned. And then we held some participatory budgeting sessions with groups, and they had to take the city's budget, divide it up, and decide how they would, spend the money. And at the end of that, there's never enough money. We had a number of people testify at the city's taxpayer night, which is about their conversation around the city's budget. We created a petition that goes to the mayor and the city council that over 500 people have signed at this point in support. And we also have done a number of canvases in the budget committee's chair's neighborhood so that she could hear directly from her neighbors and her constituents about their support. And the lawn signs that we had, they say, when wealthy institutions pay their fair share, Baltimore thrives. We've also done a number of explainer videos with social media influencers to help really grow the campaign. Social media graphics, we've done speak outs where we've invited residents and students of the hospitals and the universities to come out and share their stories about what it would look like if Baltimore were a more equitable city. And I would just say that we also realize that organizing can't just be about the struggle, but it has to be about joy, and people have to see what it looks like when we can win. So we've been really intentional about making sure that we find time to fellowship and that we're in community through happy hours, teach-ins, spoken word, dancing. One of my favorite events is we did an art build where we had folks come together and they built these big giant school buses and fire trucks to show what the city budget should be used on. And just for update, right now the legislation is before the Baltimore City Council's Budget Committee, and we are excited to see it move forward, although there's been some roadblocks. But for me, this is not just about this piece of legislation. It really is about organizing and holding our wealthy institutions accountable, as well as our elected officials, and how we shift the balance of power in our communities. Yeah. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Rikara. So I'm Cynthia Marshall. I work with the Maryland Just Power Alliance that works with AIM in Montgomery County, PATH in Howard County, and ACT in Anne Arundel County. And similar to you, we have some of the same, I think, philosophies. We believe that good legislation and policy is important, but we also know that unless we build the people power to push and hold legislators accountable, nothing will get passed. The best policy will not win the day. It's elected officials saying, this is going to hurt me if I don't pass it, more than anything else. So a little bit about us. This is a picture of us from this past from one of our actions here in Howard County. Go forward, please. 2 slides. So the way that we work is we have 65 member institutions, mostly schools and congregations, but other folks as well. And we start by listening to people in their communities, asking them questions like, what gets in the way of you and your family thriving? So Thursday night last week, we brought all of our member institutions and allies together, and each organization stood up and made commitments to how many people they're going to listen to over the next, before the end of the year, and they committed to listening to 3,500 people across Maryland. And after you can move it forward, after we do all these listening sessions with people in neighborhoods, at schools, on the playground, after church, in synagogue, in different settings, we are going to be looking both for what issues are we hearing over and over, but also as a talent search to see what local people are leaders who would want to get in good trouble with us and work on good campaigns. So you can move forward. So we're going to listen to 3,500 people, and then once we listen to those people, we try to figure out, we try to be very strategic, and do a power analysis. What power do we have to move legislation or to move a company or a landlord to do the right thing that people have named as getting in the way of them and their families thriving. So this was us with 750 people at Wild Lake Interfaith Center from across the state getting ready for last year's legislative session. And so we had people tell their personal stories of why the specific things we were working on with housing, climate equity, immigration were important to them, and why that legislation would make a real difference in their lives. And we had a lot of the elected officials there with us to hear those stories. You can move forward. Here's somebody speaking. You can move forward again. Here's a lot of the clergy and some of the leaders on the stage. You can move forward again and again. So these are, and then we also got commitments. So when we had our action, we were trying to get the legislators to commit to working with us and supporting legislation. And then we also got our people who were there that night to commit to coming to Annapolis. So we had 2 legislative days where we had 100 people each. They talked to over 50 legislators. They were mostly talking to their own legislators and pushing the specific bills that we were interested in, that we wanted to see passed. We also do this on the county level. We sometimes, and our targets are not always legislators. Sometimes it's a landlord, sometimes it's a company, sometimes it's somebody else. But what we're trying to do is see who has the power to make the real change happen, and how do we push them, what are the different angles that we can get them to make something happen. So through this organizing style, we have won over $1.5 billion for affordable housing in the state. We created, as she said, we created good green jobs here in Howard County for young adults. So hundreds of young adults, mostly from low-income backgrounds, had really good green jobs as some of their first jobs, and many of them have gone into environmental fields. We're now doing a lot. We worked with Maryland with economic action to pass stride reform. We're working to move off of dirty gas and onto clean electric energy, and making sure that low-income households and low-income housing is also included, so that it's not just historically low-income communities and community of color have borne the brunt of environmental injustice, and are also the last communities to get any benefits from environmental upgrades. So we're trying to make sure in Maryland that low-income communities, so we did a report where we had tenant leaders, went and did testing of NO2 levels in apartments. We published our report with Interfaith Powerlight and Sierra Club, and we're using that to help convince the legislators that not only is this an issue of climate, this is also an issue of health and well-being and danger, because we've seen people die also in gas explosions and fires. I don't know if there's more slides, you can move forward. Oh, so here's groups, small groups of people, move forward again, meeting with their legislators, move forward, again. And then most recently we met with the governor and are working on some housing policy as well with him. We have a 3-pronged strategy on housing, tenant protections and making sure tenants have quality, affordable housing, subsidy, but then also we know we just need more housing in our communities to stabilize. Move forward. And again, and this is just a group for our folks celebrating. So we also believe in celebration. There needs to be some roses along with the bread for folks. So that's a little bit about us.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. So thanks so much to Economic Action Maryland for inviting Progressive Maryland and me to be part of this amazing panel. We rely on economic action for a lot of the legislative expertise and policy expertise that they have, especially in the, we're part of the End Medical Debt Coalition and campaign in Maryland, which is so significant and important right now. So it's helped us pass some reforms and hold legislators and hospitals accountable. So really appreciate that. And then just a little bit about me. So I started this role as an organizer with Progressive Maryland in 2019, end of 2019. So it's about 6 years, and my main focus with the organization is building out our statewide healthcare issue organizing campaigns, and then we also work on federal issue campaigns. And it's healthcare, so we're pretty busy right now. There's a lot that is happening. So, but just a quick thing too about Progressive Maryland. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, and we've got at this point probably about 15,000 individual supporters and members across the state that are directly supporting us, or they may be part of us as well as one of our 5 chapters in the state. So we're able to get a lot of our organizing done with those individuals and with our chapters. And then we also have affiliates from the civil rights, the community, environmental movement, and the labor movement. So Ricara is on the board of Progressive Maryland. We're really lucky to have her. So we're a coalition, but we rely a lot on our grassroots strength and organizing. So I thought what I would do in the few minutes I have is just talk a little bit about some of the basic things that go into, in our view, in our experience, building effective issue campaigns. And our orientation, our theory of change, is really that corporations, dominate our economic system, they dominate our political system. Racial capitalism and corporate capitalism, which is really steroids right now, obviously, with Trump and some of the things that are happening with the budget and their other initiatives. So our priority is to fight back against the dominant narrative and the kind of power that they have to take power back. And we're not going to do it overnight, so we work on discrete issue areas and work to build block by block, sort of piece by piece, effective issue campaigns where we can win. So the core issues we work on are healthcare, we work on environmental justice and climate change. We had a big victory this year. We do a lot of work in Cherry Hill and Brooklyn, those neighborhoods in Baltimore. So people have been fighting the incinerator for years, many other groups, not just us. But we finally were able to, through legislation, get the state to at least take the incinerator out of the renewable energy portfolio. So that incinerator, which is causing so much harm to those communities, health and other bad effects, at least no longer it's still operating, but at least they're not getting our money for renewable energy tax credits. And then just quickly on housing, so last year we probably knocked on about 7,500 doors in Baltimore, Montgomery County, and Anne Arundel County in particular. So we also work on housing justice and have in the last couple of years focused on building tenant unions in Montgomery County. So we've got 3 tenant unions now that are directly challenging their landlords to improve conditions, but also working on county and state housing policy too. So the 3 things, I guess, with our issue campaigns that we've found are important components are, one is canvassing, I'll talk about in a minute. One is doing one-to-ones, relational organizing, and then taking collective action. So those 3 things are what we see as important components to our organizing. I should also say that we're part of a national network called People's Action, which has been around for many, many years. It's one of the largest organizing networks in the country. There are 40 state and local groups that are part of People's Action, And 2 years ago, at our national convention, the theme was an organizing revival. So it's really fun to be on a panel talking about organizing, because people across the country are really, especially now, focused on some basics and grassroots community organizing. So let me go back to one other thing. So when we think about what makes a successful issue campaign, there's lots of things, right? But we think about 5 things. One is getting visibility. So, right, it's not gonna really make a difference. It's not gonna help us transform the political and economic power dynamic if we're not, if it's not visible to people what we're doing. Another thing is that it needs to really help us move our demands, mostly to elected officials, but also to corporations like insurance companies. We've done a lot of work the last 2 years fighting health insurance companies for their denials of care. You may have heard about that, but in Maryland over the last 10 years, there's been a 67% increase in the number of denials. So you can have health insurance, but it doesn't make a lot of difference. It doesn't really help you if you can't really use it. And now, of course, we're on a whole nother level with insurance premiums about to go up and cuts to Medicaid and everything else. The other thing, and you all touched on it, it really, we think the issues we're working on really do have to win concrete improvements in people's lives, what you both just said, but it also gives people a sense of their own power, that we really can, raise our voices, we can make a difference, have an impact, and then that cumulatively the organizing does start to shift the balance of power so that we can win a lot more proactive and progressive and bold policies. So those are the things that we sort of think about. I also have a strategy chart to share with people. It's a issue campaign strategy chart. There are lots of amazing resources available to people on organizing. The Midwest Academy is a training school for organizers, and so that we use their strategy chart a lot in figuring out whether it's a local campaign like the one you were describing, Cara, or a statewide issue campaign. So it's basic. We do a lot of canvassing, not just door to door, but at community events, at health events. We try to, use our community members to stay on top of opportunities to be out in the community and engage with people. And similarly to what Cara and Cynthia were saying, we do have an issue that we take to people, but a big part of the conversation we're having is to find out what their concerns are. Is this affecting them? It's how we have actually figured out what issues we should work on, because it's like, oh, well, people are really talking about these denials, so that's what helped us create that campaign. So what you gain from that is you start to build a list of people, right? We talk about base building, but those connections, people sign a petition, they share a little bit about themselves, and then we have their names, their contact information, and we can follow up with people to invite them to do one-to-ones. So relational organizing is really key. So have folks here done one-to-ones with people, or have people ever done a one-on-one with you? And was it effective? Did it influence you? And
yeah, they're effective. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the folks that we talk to when we're at the event or at their door, what we do is it's sort of the talent searching. We identify what we call people that are potential, volunteers or prospects, and then circle back with them to sit down, see if we can find 30 minutes to have an in-person or a virtual one-to-one. And that helps us deepen our relationship with people and find out their self-interests and figure out what they might be interested in terms of what we're doing, and then give people, proposition them about roles that they can take and things that they can do. And then finally, collective action, and again, you all mentioned this, but we think it's really important for people to come together and take collective action. So it's one thing to sign a petition at an event or to answer a phone call and say, yes, I'll send an email to a legislator, but we really believe in public collective action. So we do lobby nights in Annapolis. We do a couple of year, one that's just ours. Last year we had more leaders and more people come to Annapolis than we've ever had before as an organization. We do petition deliveries, so we get people involved. We're gonna do one, Andy Harris, in October. We've collected 1,200 signatures from people in District 1 who are mad about his vote on the healthcare budget cuts. So we're arranging to do a petition delivery to his office. We do town halls, and we also do direct actions at corporations where people can feel their collective power. At those events, we work to give leaders roles and a lot of ownership over what we're doing. So that's just in a nutshell, I guess, a sketch of what we do. And it really, we work as much as possible to have it be member-driven and leader-driven. We have some staff, but we are much more powerful and effective when we have hundreds of volunteers working with us on our issue campaigns throughout the year. So that's a bit about us.